Pressing the go live button. Fingers crossed, we are all live and a-okay. Doing the old refresh on YouTube, on LinkedIn, on Twitter/X, on Twitch to hang out with everybody. I think we're doing it. Thank you so much for coming to hang out. My goodness gracious, it is yet again another Friday, another week, what is this? This is the third week. This is the third week of the month. In which case, hey, we get together with some of our sweet all-stars over on the Just Hacking training side of the house. Now, for folks that aren't tracking or aren't as familiar, look, let me be straight up. Let me be totally forthcoming. Just Hacking training is the other venture, extra project, another spinning plate that we're having fun with to be able to share more education, more content, more training, more material, more love for cybersecurity, for one thing. That's probably paramount in my mind, but my goodness, there's a heck of a lot more than just that. So we'll dig into a ton of it. I know the star of the show today is not me. It is Katie Paxton-Fear, InsiderPhD. She is going to wow and razzle dazzle and all the sweet fun stuff that we get to chat about and dig into super duper soon. But if I may, please, pretty please, indulge me. This is a Just Hacking training live stream, which does mean I have to chat a little bit about Just Hacking training. So bear with me. Let me get to the good stuff. I'll do a little bit of screen share. And again, the usual spiel, the usual structure. I'll take maybe 5 or 10 minutes to roll through these announcements, air quotes, the elevator pitch and spiel. And then we'll get to hang out with Katie. So look, let me share my screen. I'll move chat out of the way. And we'll do this thing. Hopefully audio is all good. Hopefully you've got video and visuals. But let me know in the chat if otherwise. But take a look. JustHacking.com. So JustHacking.com is where we've got the umbrella for all the sweet stuff, whether we're putting out courses, more education, and more that structured curriculum style stuff, or free, or name your price, or pay what you want, or pay what you can, more accessible stuff, whether it is an upskill challenge, which are totally free, or maybe a hack along where you've got a video guide to walk you through things, and then a little bit more of our Capture the Flag archives. So if I may just steamroll through the sweet stuff that we've been cooking up, and I'll answer the question first right away. Yes, this is a little show that is recorded. You will find this still on the YouTube channel. You can watch it on demand later if you want to keep listening to me ramble. And if folks weren't tracking, we do have an events page that's right up here under the vitals. And with that, you'll be able to see kind of all that we're up to. Not only these live streams that we're doing online, on LinkedIn, on Twitch, on X, on YouTube, and all the other potential upcoming soon-to-be guests for folks part of the show. And the other events that we're going to be at. So if you want to hang out with us IRL, in real life, when we are out and about at different conferences, different trade shows, different sweet events in cybersecurity. Look, I was hanging out at Wild West Hacking Fest over in Denver. B-Sides Rochester, we were hanging out. I'll be there again for now B-Sides Charm. Well, sorry, I won't be at Charm, but I will be at Hack SpaceCon. We'll be hanging out at B-Sides Tampa, B-Sides San Francisco, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of fun, sweet stuff if you'd like. And if you're making it out to a couple of those other events, it would be super sweet to see you. Get a chance to hang out, shake hands, say hello, banter, as we do. With that, let me roll through some of the sweet stuff that's available now with Just Hacking training. And this is awesome, if I may say. We are up to just about 40 different offerings, whether it's courses, whether it's hackalongs, whether it's upskill challenges, whether it's Capture the Flag training and capability. Like, I feel good about that. That makes me feel pretty rock solid. And it's all in sheer sincere gratitude to all the other all-stars that are putting stuff together. And now got a really cool position where, we're building out the other segments, the sequel, the next continuation of what could very well be a whole path, not just one course. So we've got that rolling with Active Directory. Slavi Parpilev has put together a phenomenal mastering Active Directory security little saga here, whether it's credentials, whether it's protocols and permissions, whether it's Kerberos delegation and relaying. You could snag them all together as a bundle. And I know there's a price tag here. Let me say, hey, I got to make sure these people get paid. I got to help make sure the team is compensated, because it's not just me. You know, I try to, hey, get stuff out and about that is accessible. You got all these free YouTube videos here and there. But the incredible other people in the industry that I do want to shine the spotlight on and help celebrate and shine stuff on them. Look, they got to get some love. And Mashal, you've got a chance to hang out with him before on past live streams. He's done some incredible stuff with open source intelligence and OSINT. We've got the Mashal bundle, making him the rock star for real here, because he has not just those courses, not just OPSEC alongside OSINT, but even a couple hackalongs and challenges like geo-OSINT, like geographical. Where in the world is this picture taken? Tons of cool stuff, and he's cooking up more. But if you wanted everything that Mashal has done, there's a sweet bundle for that at about $150. Alongside that is the sequel and saga now for WMD2. WMD being the cool acronym, little nickname for Windows Malware Development. Now, we started small. The basics, the beginnings, the early starting baby steps with shellcode loaders. I know we're kind of kicking the tires, but now we're getting to a little bit more of the advanced execution, obfuscation techniques, TTPs, tactics, techniques, and procedures. Again, if you want to snag both of those, and now there is WMD3 is well on its way. I don't know if that'll hit April or May, but I think that's in the cooker. So please, please, please do tune into those. Now, another sweet one that I do want to just give a little extra pizzazz to, because we've been doing our darndest to share a live stream deal to hopefully sweeten and have some fun and, hey, chill with all of you that were so gracious to hang out with us here for the live stream. And Constructing Defense, if I'm not sure if you're tracking, but this was one of the early first things that we got out and about, and it's a big beefy environment because it is an entire like detection lab with SIEM solutions, with EDR aspects, with Linux, with Windows hosts, with purple teaming, even some of the Kubernetes in the mix, cloud providers, Azure, AWS, all in here. Super duper cool stuff. And it's all with Anton. Anton Ovrutsky had put this together, and he is the mastermind. But we're super stoked because this will end up being upgraded very, very soon. So we're going to end up having the 2025 rendition of Constructing Defense. And the sweet new stuff with that is that you'll actually have access to Splunk. You get to use Splunk as the SIEM. So that gives a much more real world tie to it alongside all the other incredible stuff here. But the gist, I know some folks are a little bit upset in chat. I know there's a price tag here. Look, the sweet deal to hopefully make that a little bit more palatable is about a 25% off discount code with ConDef 2025 in the works. Now we've got ConDef 25. We'll give you 25% off. And with that, I'll shut up because I know we aren't too happy about all those that have a price tag. But look, if you wanted the free stuff, hey, I'm super stoked. We were ecstatic to be able to get these out the door. There are tons of new, completely free, all accessible, really $0.00 tag. So you get to, hey, really dive into some cool stuff, whether it's penetration test reporting, whether it's brute force attacks, more password hacking, or cyber threat intelligence. But this is all put together by incredible, badass, lovely ladies and stellar women in the industry. Did want to really harp on that for Women's History Month. And I'm just so grateful to be able to help spotlight and celebrate those people doing incredible things. With all that, the star of the show is not me, it's Katie. And Katie, thank you so much for hanging out with us. I think you're in the back. I know you're listening, maybe tuning in on the background and the production stage and voice in my ear here. But can you give me a thumbs up? Are you all good? Are you ready to dive in? Super cool. I'll bring you in. How's it going?
Hello. Hello. Going well. How are you doing?
I'm all right. Realizing I know there's a lot to roll through. I always sound like a broken record. Hey, we do these announcements, but I hope it's fun. I hope it's still a lot of good stuff out and about. But what have you been up to? What's going on in your world?
Nothing much. Just doing some API hacking. I've gotten really into my like hardware hacking recently. So I've got like literally a mountain of soldering to do this weekend. I'm getting better though. It took a while, but I'm getting better.
Well, Is there any, I don't know, content or videos or new stuff that you're doing in that hardware hacking direction? I feel like that's not normally your bag. You're normally web apps or API or WebSockets, etc. But hardware hacking, that's awesome.
Well, when you think about it, it's not actually that different, because when you're doing like IoT, for example, right? That is essentially APIs plus hardware. So actually, it's kind of on brand. It's kind of a weird on brand. I always say it's because I'm like, I think anybody who spends a lot of time in tech kind of feels this way, but we often deal with very virtual things. We'll make stuff and then we never really get to experience it. Like, we don't have like physical representations of what we spent our work doing.
Yeah.
So I think hardware hacking gives you like a physical representation. It gives you something, you can touch it, you can interact with it, and also that is great for your learning. And I know that because that came up in my teacher training.
Heck yeah. What are you putting together? Is it breadboards? Is it more of the soldering? Is it, I don't know, you got any of the sweet button presses stuff from an Arduino kit? How are you giving that life?
I thought I'd make my life really easy. I thought I'd choose an easy first project. So what I'm doing is I've got a pile of e-ink screens and I've got boxes of filament for 3D printing. And I thought, labels. So instead of, taking a pen and a sticker and just writing on the box what's in there, I thought, no. We can over-engineer this solution. So I'm building a like reader writer that will connect to an API that goes into my spool management system that's going to update the labels for me. So every single label will automatically be updated with like how much is left of the filament and what color it is and like when I bought it. And all of that is then managed automatically through another API. So yeah, lots of fun API stuff, but like in a way you don't necessarily expect it. But it's been super fun. Like I've been using ESP32s, and they are fantastic if you're an API hacker. Like easy API connections just works with your regular HTTP kind of APIs. So yes, more content coming. I'm gonna be making videos on what exactly I did, how I did it, and kind of some advice for people who kind of want to go and learn hardware hacking, because I think it's a really cool skill and I think it's something unique that a lot of people don't have. So it's a good niche to get into, especially in like a bug bounty context where we're all competing against each other. So we need to like be a bit more competitive.
Well, that's awesome. I am jealous. I wish, oh man, I want to be able to dig into some of that cool fun stuff. Like I've got a couple toys. I've got the Flipper Zero, and I don't know if that even counts. That's not soldering breadboard. That's not really hardware hacking, but I've got the OMG cable. I've got the soldering kit and the breadboard and all, but I need to really play with it all a little bit more.
Well, I mean, I bought a Flipper Zero as well, right?
Excellent.
I was like, okay, great. I bought this like a year ago. The spools come with little RFID tags in them. So I'm like, I have a Flipper Zero. Perfect. I'm going to be able to. You cannot use the Flipper Zero for it. No. Go buy a Proxmark 3. It costs like 1/3 the price and does more. And I was like, wow. I think I might have wasted my money on the Flipper Zero.
Well, anyway, I'm sorry for the tangent. You just kind of nerd sniped me with some of the hardware hacking endeavors, but I know, hey, is it fair to say most folks know you for the sweet stuff that you're doing against APIs and other web apps? Is that, do you consider that your bread and butter?
That's a good question. Yes, I can actually. You know what? I consider my bread and butter to be teaching people.
Excellent.
That's something that's really important to me, and something that I think I'm actually good at, and it's what the world needs. But certainly, yeah, APIs. I always say I used to make APIs and now I break them. Is kind of how I would describe it. I used to, when I was a developer, I used to literally just make APIs. So it's kind of like being on the other side and being able to use that knowledge in a new way. So yeah, API hacking probably up there, but honestly, teaching is probably what I describe as my bread and butter.
Well, if it's A-okay, I would love to, just for a brief moment, shine the spotlight on some of the sweet stuff that you've kind of shared with us previously. You've put out a whole lot of awesome again, totally free, totally accessible. Like there is no barrier of entry for these upskill challenges, whether it's learning a little bit more about what the heck an API is or getting into WebSockets. I know that was just your very latest one. We could chat or dive into that. And even some stuff specific to GraphQL, which is like its own whole world, digging into all of that. And then RESTful APIs on their own, whether it's just sending a lot of JSON back and forth, data here and there, et cetera, et cetera. So I am a huge fan. I'm a fanboy. I don't think there's anything wrong with me saying that. I sure hope not. But what of these, can I ask, do you have like a favorite? Do you have something that you feel is the most valuable out of all these?
It depends. So if you know absolutely nothing about APIs, or maybe you've heard about them and you're like, oh my God, that sounds like something I want to learn, definitely use C on APIs. If you're trying to upskill and pick up like a unique skill or something that, you know, especially if you want to get into something like bug bounty hunting where you've got that competitive element, you're trying to get an edge over what other people know, I really recommend the GraphQL stuff, because GraphQL as a technology is so new and developers do not know how to secure it, like, at all. I remember when I found my first GraphQL vulnerability, a week previously I'd done like the most basic GraphQL CTF. It was literally just write a GraphQL query. And the week afterwards, I found my first GraphQL bug, which turned out to be nothing more than writing a GraphQL query. So it did not take me long to use that, and it was so weird as well, because it was for a live hacking event. So I was in a hotel with some other hackers, and I literally just turned it on, started hacking, and I was just, you know, having a go, looking, exploring the target, and I think within 5 minutes I'd found the vulnerability. And then I was like, hey, I think I found something. And everyone in the room was like, what? You've literally, what? It's been 5 minutes and you've already found something. Like, yeah, I found something. So I recommend GraphQL. I think GraphQL is good if you are trying to like get a niche, or you're trying to upskill your knowledge a little bit. If you just want to know the basics of APIs and you're just trying to understand, you know, what is an API, why does it matter, I think start with the basics of API, then do RESTful, GraphQL, then WebSockets. So it's like a nice learning pathway there.
Thank you so much for putting those together. Seriously, the GraphQL one, I am not super sharp in GraphQL. I'll be the first to admit. I feel like I've got a couple videos just trying to play with it and understand a little bit more. But it does sound like, hey, it's new, it's emergent, and there's no real. I don't know if guardrails is fair to say, but just it's easy to get it up and working, and then you don't dig into any more security aspects to it. So if you can query stuff, you could query all of the stuff. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, pretty much. And even so I work at an API security company, right? And we'd secure our customers' stuff. In that situation, I constantly see developers who just do not have access control on their APIs. That is the number one issue we always come across, is access control issues on APIs. So actually, if people are listening to this and being like, how do I find a bug in an API? Just go to access control. Just test everything. It is a numbers game. It will inevitably mean you will find a bug. It's just going to take time, and APIs can be massive, which is great because that's loads of attack surface, but it's bad because, oh my God, so overwhelming. So much to do.
Well, I saw it drop in the comments or some of the chat going on. Hey, someone suggested using Postman. Are there other tools? I don't know. What are your go-tos? Is it Burp Suite? Are you into Zap? Or just scripting, writing code, whether you're cutting up Python or whatever you're doing? How can you tactically kind of, start to approach those?
So, okay. The answer is it depends. However, as somebody who learned how to program in Notepad as a child, I don't want anything fancy. So I don't actually use Postman. People love Postman. Like, people love it. They think the software's great. Totally fine. I do not use Postman. I literally just use Burp. Just give me the raw request and response, and I will interpret the rest. Now, saying that, This is not an advertisement. However, full disclosure, they gave me a free account. JSON Crack allows you to take like a big piece of JSON and put it into a tree structure. So if you're doing something like GraphQL where you have like the response is like hundreds of lines long and it's all JSON, you can paste it in there and it will make it into a tree structure, which makes it a lot easier to read. Again, full disclosure, they did give me a free account. You can do it with a free account. I don't know what the paid software does. I didn't even look at the email, but I feel like I must disclose it. But really recommend that. And honestly, I spend so much time writing user scripts with like Tamper Monkey and Script Monkey on Chrome. I would just go in there and it's like, if I need to automate everything, I need to grab like form fields, for example. I will just go in there and just write up the dirtiest script that will just get it and just output it to like a CSV format.
I love, we got a couple questions coming through in chat, and I want to, keep encouraging that because this is totally more of the AMA. Please do tune in with any questions you've got in the chat. But really sweet one from Peter. He was saying, hey, honestly, how do you find the endpoints that a server or an API has? Are you scraping the front end looking for it, sending the data, or speaking just as John, like I wonder, can you always track down the API docs, whether it's a Swagger endpoint or one or the other? I don't know. What is there an enumeration approach that you've got?
So this is where I'm going to sound like a really bad hacker because no, I don't do anything special. My version of reconnaissance is to press buttons, and it sounds like a joke, but genuinely. So I find, and in my experience, you're not going to get API, like especially in like a bug bounty context. I'm going to keep using bug bounty example because it's the main thing I do. I don't do a lot of actual pen testing because honestly, that job sounds really hard. Because in bug bounty hunting, I need one vulnerability, and in pen testing, the client won't be happy if you only have one. So that's why I do bug bounty hunting. But in like a bug bounty context, I'm not getting any docs, right? Like I'll be lucky if I get docs for the API I'm working on. So instead, what I tend to do is, so I do a lot of mobile hacking. I don't know if you can see behind me, but over there in the windowsill, I actually have like an iPad, an iPhone, and an Android phone that are all switched on because they're all like in various states of being rooted or jailbroken. So I do a lot of mobile hacking. And what I do is I will go into literally all the like all of the like buttons and the hamburger menu, and I'll just try and do everything. And by the time that I've kind of done that for an hour and I've just looked with my eyes what's in front of me, I will actually be able to find out how the API works. Like I'm not going to have the same understanding as if it had documentation, but honestly, you kind of don't really need that. Again, bug bounty hunter, only need one bug, don't need to find more than one for a single client.
That is, I guess, a luxury that I've never particularly realized, but you are so right. I just need one.
Yeah, exactly. I just need one and it to be good. And then that's it. I don't need pen testing.
Well, I got to ask a hard question because I know would love, hey, some of that sweet show and tell and demo. But you gave me heads up just a bit ago. It's like, oh crap, I don't know if we're at where we should be with Docker or whatever technical issue shenanigans. Are you in a spot to do any show and tell?
I can do a little bit of show and tell.
A little bit? Okay.
We may not find a vulnerability because we're going to be using an actual website. And if we do find a vulnerability, I'm going to have to stop sharing my screen.
Oh, this is excellent.
Pretty quickly.
Totally real world.
Yeah, very real world. Okay, right. Let me get my screen up. Thankfully, I have a good working relationship with Bugcrowd. And they haven't minded me doing it in the past. Excellent. So
well, here, I'll bring it up here. And do you mind if I hate to be like that annoying person raising their hand, but always the super zoom in, the big text, whatever we can do to try and amp up the quality would be lovely.
Definitely.
So thank you so much.
Let me just Actually, the UI might be okay, because this is what I do when I do videos as well.
People make fun of me when I have like 78 size font, but you got to support all those mobile viewers. I know you watch YouTube on your, I don't know, laying in bed, whatever.
Where's the other font size? Oh, there it is. Let's change that up to 18. Oh yeah, cool. Right, so I'm gonna kind of start with like a philosophy of how I do like any API hacking. So this is what my screen will usually look like: burp and whatever website I'm testing. I tend to like to use, I don't use dark mode, I'm afraid, folks. I am a light mode person. My greatest shame as a hacker is the fact that I use light mode. So the first thing I will do is I will get up burp. However, I don't use burp. The first thing I will always do is I will just explore a website how it's supposed to be used. Like, I will go in and say log in, create accounts. I will do whatever I need to do, because at the start I'm just trying to understand what my client kind of does and how it works. So to use an example, I've tested in the past Salesforce. I don't know if anyone in the chat has had the pleasure of using Salesforce. But my God, that could be an example of like software bloat. Is such a good example of software bloat. Just because like the amount of objects it has and entities and how those all get joined together, and all of them are different. So first thing to do is just explore it normally. You're just trying to understand how it works together. So do things like create an account. At the moment, I'm not trying to go into here and say, I don't know, like start spamming, XSS payloads in here or whatever. I'm only really trying to understand how the website works. And this is the same advice I give my students as well, because so often it's easy to like rush in and go, oh yeah, I need to do this and this and this and this and this. So first thing is always just explore what you can have in front of you with your eyeballs. Oh, there's not the right. There we go.
Can I dance with that for just a little bit to give you some coverage?
Yeah.
I feel like I follow along not to say the same or the exact same approach, but I'm always just looking for like, okay, where can I actually interact with this? Where is the input? Where do I get to give it data that I control some way, somehow? But especially even just being on the front end user interface, like you mentioned, look, buttons, text boxes, whatever we can use. I mean, that's going to be realistically, if you find something, probably the most impactful bug. Or probably the most reliable vulnerability, because it's already in front of you or everyone that's on that app or that service. Quick questions coming up though. Hey, if we could squeeze it in, what will really define a vulnerability in the bug bounty sense? Is it just always simple, unexpected behavior, or are you absolutely kind of making sure you hit the tier of remote code execution, information disclosure, blah, 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 blah?
I'm not quite hitting that one.
Okay.
A lot of the bugs that I find are actually like really simple vulnerabilities. I am not, and I will be the first person to admit this, I'm not a very good hacker. I am not the like most amazing, most talented, most like nothing like that. 90% of the bugs I find are like silly little mistakes that developers have made. So when it comes to a bug bounty context, though, it doesn't matter that my bugs are bad. It only matters that the bugs have impact on the client. Whatever the client says they want to see. So if I'm working with an EU company, I'm thinking, PII, GDPR, that kind of thing. If I'm working with a company that does have like a really high barrier, like Intel, for example, they take like bugs on their CPUs. I'm not going to bother submitting something to them, because I'm not going to find a bug that good. There's a certain amount of like I don't know, like engineering that happens within bug bounty. Like, how do you make it easier for yourself? I think a lot of people think, you know, only the best hackers get access to like the good programs. It doesn't really quite work like that. It's the best hackers know which programs to focus on that match their skill set, their experience, and what they're actually interested in doing. There's a bit of like engineering there of like choosing a target and stuff like that.
Cool. All right, I see generic university. Uh-oh.
Yes, this is my test application because I couldn't get my bug crowd authenticator working. This is a test application that I created. I'll be honest, it's not very good. It's very unstable. I would really recommend nobody downloads this. It actually needs an entire rewrite, so don't download it. It's on GitHub if you want to look at it. Don't download it. Don't use it. It's not worth it. I'm working on a new one. It takes some time, okay? But I promise this will probably be one of the last times I use it, I swear. So this is my generic university. It's my application that I made. As you can see, it's under construction. And it's got, again, some functionality here. First thing, never paste payloads in at all. You don't want to... I'm just putting some garbage in here. You don't want to, like, start testing and then not know what function is broken, especially with something like blind access, for example, where you're not really sure where it's going. You don't want to be in a position where you don't know what you've done. Like, you've broken it, congratulations, like you found the vulnerability. Where is the vulnerability though? I don't know. You want to make sure you are hacking with like a purpose and you've got an end goal in mind. Like, you know what you're testing. You're not just hitting buttons. You're trying to think kind of through the problems. Okay, once I've done that, I've got some of my like different issues in here. I'm then just going to have a look and see what my web browser is actually sending. So here I can see there's quite a lot of HTML files. There's quite a lot of like JavaScript, and it's like, okay, yeah, I don't really want that. What else can I find? I'll just go through here. Oh, look, that's the word API. You'll often find APIs just because they're labeled as API. My number one tip for looking for APIs, just search for the word APIs. Actually, I was booking a flight once, and you know when the flight like asks you, oh, do you want to pick a seat? And then you have to pay for a seat because you know, airlines don't give you anything for free nowadays, right? So I was trying to book a seat, and my partner's tall. So, okay, we need an extra legroom seat. I'm ready. I'm ready to get absolutely destroyed by how much this is going to cost me. But okay, go in there. Okay, there's like 2 legroom seats available. Great. Tick, tick. Press go. Nothing is happening. It's not letting me book the 2 seats, but there's only these 2 seats left, and I don't really want to be on a flight with my partner for like 5 hours and have him complain because his legs hurt. So I was like, okay, I am going to have a look and see what this is actually doing like under the hood. So I was looking, and I just literally used, if I right click here, inspect. And I just went into network down here, and I just went to see what it was doing while I was trying to select these seats. And I realized that it was an API, and for whatever reason, the like API wasn't being called correctly. I think it was the seats weren't like being labeled correctly. Anyway, so I went in there and I made my little API request. And then I booked the seats I wanted. I still paid for them. To be clear, I still paid for them. I was not that bad. I did not pay for them. However, I did like use my API hacking skills for evil as well as good. But in my defense, I couldn't do it. Like the application wasn't letting me, and it was the only extra legroom seat that was available. So that's a genuine true story as well.
That's crazy. And I don't know, a little necessary sometimes though, right?
I'm so bad. Like, when a website doesn't work for me, I will literally go up to whatever to like the inspect tab or open up Burp, or I will just go into there and like try and make requests myself to try and fix it. It's so bad. It's like when you can make direct requests to a server, then you don't need buttons anymore. Where we're going, we don't need buttons.
Where we're going, we don't need buttons. Excellent. Well, is there more we can dig into here for your generic university? Or
yes, there is.
Right.
So what you do to hack APIs is you go into Repeater, you find an API request. This one is to API/users/6, and you change the /6 to literally any other number. Don't like that
Simple
one.
enough.
5. And then you'll get somebody else's personal details, and then that's it. That's all API hacking is. I hate to break it to everybody because people keep on asking me to make new videos, and it's like I don't really know what else I can say about this, because genuinely this is how I find API security vulnerabilities. Like genuinely, one of my first vulnerability was in Uber, right? And it was this. It literally was changing an ID from one to another ID. That's it. That was the entire vulnerability. Just done.
Now, I know in this case, right, it's kind of, hey, boiled down to just a simple integer. Like it's a number. Oh, you change a 1 to a 2 and then a 3 and maybe a 5 here and there. Are there cases that you run into maybe even more frequently now that are, oh, a whole GUID or a specific hexadecimal string or a hash or something, or that's not strictly an IDOR, like insecure direct object reference? I always parallel that in my mind with, hey, a different sort of ID.
So yeah, absolutely. UUIDs are incredibly common. However, the problem is that IDs appear in lots of different places. And again, I'll use a real example of a vulnerability I found. I was testing a social media application, and you could essentially upload videos to it. It was kind of like YouTube. It wasn't YouTube. It was kind of similar though in like functionality. And the same way on YouTube where you can view somebody else's video, you get the little URL string on the end, right? You get your whatever, the random string of characters and numbers. That's not private. That's public. That is an ID that you can see that's not iteratable. Like you can't easily go and put a 1 at the end of it. However, it isn't impossible to know that ID. And quite often when I speak to companies and like I report these vulnerabilities, they say, oh, we use a UUID, so it doesn't matter. It's like, yeah, but your UUID is public on this other page. And it took me like 5 minutes to find it. Like I could do it to any. And this is, I think, one of the kind of frustrating things about bug bounty hunting sometimes, that actually, like, you kind of have to tell the person who works for this company, like, how their application works. But yeah, even if you could just generate an ID, that's enough. And certainly a good API will allow you to easily generate valid IDs for other things as well. But I think the other way you can test is by using something called the cookie trick. So when you're logged into an account and you have a cookie, like this one is a JWT here, and you can, oh, sorry, it's not JWT, it's just JSON. Is this one a JWT? That's also just JSON. When you go into your cookies here, you'll have a bunch of them. So if I go to like another website, let's go, I'll just go back to BugCrowd.
And quick background context in case folks weren't tracking, the JWT that was suggested, the acronym there, usually for a JSON web token, oftentimes used really well in cookies or sessions for HTTP for interacting with a website. You can do a whole lot of weird, wacky stuff with JWTs, whether you're finding, the JWK or finding, any of the key stuff that helps determine what that could be. But it looks a lot like that base64, but separated into triplets with periods or dots in between them. First one kind of sets, like the header information, what algorithm is used to mint or put together this token. The second is the actual payload, and then a signature at the very end. But you'll normally identify them with that E, like Y, J, whatever syntax that starts at the very beginning, because that's the curly brace for a starting like JSON or JavaScript object notation, base64 encoded. And neat-o, if you need help ever remembering that when you're looking for those JWTs, a good friend of ours likes to call them like Hey Joe, like, silly EYJ, and then a bunch of other nonsense. But sorry, I didn't mean to ramble. But
we at work we're doing. I started a webinar series and I called it EYJ, and
nice.
I cannot tell you the amount of discussions I had to have with our marketing department to get them to allow me to call it. I'm like, no, people will get it. They'll understand what it means.
It's a joke.
It's a joke. It's fine. And they're like, yeah, I don't get it though. I was like, yeah, you're not the target demographic though, are you? It's like other API security nerds are going to watch this. So yes, anyway, when you look at a real website, you have a cookie, and cookies are just data that your web browser stores on behalf of a server. So often this will have things like if you get like a cookie pop-up, whether or not you accept or decline might be in here. Some of them, most of them are for advertising reasons. They can track you. So here you can see how I got to Bug Crowd, which is via the tracker, because I was looking at a report. And some of these, I think this one is Google Analytics here. But one of these is going to be what account you're logged in as. So if you want to test accounts and you want to test whether or not you can do like cross-user interaction, you log in to two different accounts at once. One is your victim account, one is your attacker account. In your victim's account, you go through and you do a bunch of different requests. You say edit details, you change your whatever your avatar, etc., etc., etc. And there will be IDs in there, right? If it's using an API and it's using like these kinds of more traditional RESTful API, it will add, there'll be an ID somewhere. You don't need to know where it is though, because what you can do is you can just replace your victim's cookie here with your attacker's cookie. So you'll go into here and let's imagine, I'm just going to send these both to repeater. So imagine this is like my victim, and then this one is my attacker. And then this might have like a few different. So this has got some UUIDs. I'm just going to change this to be other numbers for the sake of realism. Whatever. So on your victim, if you just go to your cookie here and you just delete the whole thing, and then go to your attacker and then paste the cookie from your attacker in there, like so. And there are tools that do this automatically as well, like Autorize. But there's a few more now. There's like auto repeater, and there's another one that does it. Anyway, so you do that. And then because you've changed the cookie round, this request is then being in a situation where it's like, okay, you are logged into account A for attacker, and you are able to do a request that uses some kind of ID from your second account, your victim account. If you run this and it affects the victim, not the attacker, that is, again, a valid, we call it Bowler in API world, but it's similar to an IDOR, even if you don't know where that ID parameter is. So even if you don't know which of them is IDs, you can start with just going in here and editing the cookies, and then you can investigate, okay, which one of these like 100 lines is my actual ID. You would just press send, and then if you get your expected response, so here is some HTML, yeah, that's right, we should be getting HTML. We can say, okay, this is probably a bowler or idle or whatever you want to call it.
Are those certainly the most common, you're thinking?
Yes, by far. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, I think one of the great things you have when you get started out with hacking is you have time, because you want to learn and you want to like develop your skills. So it's literally a matter of like how many like API endpoints you hit. The more API endpoints you can find and test, the greater. The other part of like finding real vulnerabilities, I find maybe like 60 to 80% of my vulnerabilities in mobile apps, because people aren't testing there as much. So my kind of preferred setup is actually like an iPhone that's been jailbroken and that has SSL pinning removed. And that's the reason why the phones are always on charge. Because if you didn't know, when you're doing iOS hacking, you need to do something called an SSL bypass. So by default, applications know whether or not you're using something like Burp, where you have to install your own certificate, and they will just not function, and they'll be like, sorry, can't do that. They can also detect whether or not they're running on an emulator as well for Android, and they'll go, no, not running. So using an iOS device which has SSL by pinning disabled, you can look at this traffic the same way you look at any other traffic. It doesn't change like your actual hacking process. You're just attacking APIs. That's the secret. It's always APIs.
I saw a lot of chatter down below for mobile, and everyone was super interested. Hey, is it ADB? Are you doing any Android work? I know your setup is mostly on iPhone, you said, but how else do you approach or go after those mobile apps, and especially APIs there?
So I'm a big fan of Jenny. Oh God. I'm a big fan of Genymotion. So Genymotion is not free. It is paid if you want the good features on it. But this just enables you to like just manage virtual devices. You don't have to use it. I just like it because it kind of, I think the actual like where you interact with the device, if I just let it run for a second, you get quite a lot of access to things on this side. So this is things that's like, you could change where your camera is pointed. You can change like GPS. You just literally install apps the same way you would install apps on any other like device. The only problem is that if I test an app, like I was testing Revolut, for example, you get, this cannot be run on an emulator, which is really frustrating when you're trying to do some hacking. So hence why I went to a phone shop and I got an iPhone dead cheap. I paid like less than £100, and the like cost paid off, I think, in like one vulnerability. So on here, I'm using the Taurine jailbreak, like this. And then I just install something called SSL bypass, which is a tweak. It's called SSL kill switch. So it appears in here and it just goes disable. Not now. Goes disable SSL pinning. So I just tap that, right? And then I can set up my proxy on my phone to proxy into Burp on my computer. Apparently now I'm doing a demo on this, which is good because I didn't actually prepare for this. But I can go into here. double check where my burp is actually running in the proxy settings.
This
So
is
you
still very awesome. I think this is kind of cool to be able to funnel the app in your phone through burp. So I like this.
So you want to check that, make sure, see how the interface is running on 127.0.0.1, so that's your local host. Instead, you want it to go to all interfaces. So this will then run on like any interface. You can also go into here and like give it like a specific address. So I could go in here and do 192.168.168, which is my local IP address. I would then go into my phone, and if you go into your Wi-Fi settings and you go to like the configure proxy settings, you go to like manual, and then you just type in your burp address that you've just set. So mine is 192.168.1.68, and then my port, which is 8080, again from burp. Save it. And now what we should see in my HTTP history here. Oh.
So for me to regurgitate, if that's okay, you kind of
Yeah,
set,
please go
hey,
ahead.
just a burp listening on your interface that's public in the local area network, not public, not open internet, but at least in your local internet enclave, right? So you get a 192.168 local address, and then you tell, even in like your Wi-Fi settings of your phone, hey, there's nothing wrong with going to that on the device, to use that as the manual proxy. Same thing that I guess we do in Firefox or in Chrome, or when we do it on the computer, just on your phone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's all it is. All you then need to do is just install the certificate into the, again, you just do the same thing you do. You go to like trusted certificates and your certificate trust settings.
Oh, right, because you'd have to add the burp suite.
But thankfully, it just lets you do that. Look at that. I just got Port Swigger already on there.
Neato.
So,
but I am pleased because I think the mobile app and mobile attack surface when it comes to APIs is still going to hit all the same highlights that you're covering, and even a little bit of WebSockets here and there, right? There's still some love for others that you put together.
Absolutely. And it's I think, again, if you're thinking like going into like bug bounty hunting, right, there is an amount of how do we be competitive to make sure that we find bugs before anybody else. Learning something like API hacking, but especially anything that requires even a little bit of friction on the hacker side, actually that's already going to put you in like a very small bucket to people who are going to find vulnerabilities, right? Like I'm only competing with everybody else who has an iPhone, who has SSL kill switch, which is super easy to install. Also, I see questions in the chat about Android. I got you. I've got an Android phone as well.
That's the one that I was going to ask, because I'm an Android one myself personally.
The only thing is with Android is there's not a good way to do SSL bypass on the pinning. You have to, not to like continue talking about this, there's a tool called Frida. There's a script that you can run with Frida when your phone is connected via USB to your hacking device. That's called it's like I think it's called Universal SSL Cert or something on Frida, but that can then do it. But a lot of applications add a third-party SSL certificate. They'll lose like a third-party library to do it, and it only works really against like ones that use the default option. Otherwise, you need to go in and like reverse engineer the entire application, and that's just too much. I know people are asking on the chat for the name of the thingy. It's this one. That's this one. And then and it's then this is the script for Frida. I've put in the other thing.
Sweet.
And
Thank you so much.
You might also need then to, if you want to root an Android phone, you also need to use a separate tool that will detect whether or not they know you're a root, which you don't need on iOS either. So I prefer iOS. It's a lot easier for hacking. So as long as you can jailbreak, super easy for hacking. If you can't jailbreak, it's so hard. But that's where you get an older phone. You go to like a phone shop, you get like an iPhone X, or I think I've got, I don't know what this is. Is this a 7 or an 8 maybe? I don't know. Then you just do it that way. And you don't even have to know anything about like how Android works, because you're literally just using it as a way to get to the APIs. You're like hitching a ride on the Android application to find APIs.
Super cool. I really want to dive into more of the mobile world, but I don't know if you're ever up for it. I guess those are my next questions. Is hey, what's kind of next for you? You've got some stuff with work. You've got videos on hardware hacking coming out the door. I don't know. Is there more call to action? There were a couple more sweet questions that came through. Hey, on the blue team side, defense, how do you harden against this? Or do you ever go back to previous targets? I don't know if you want to squeeze those in, but hey, maybe 5 minutes or so left, and then we can get out of here.
I can squeeze them in. So I have realized as I've learned more about bug bounty hunting. So it was maybe my second target. I was testing a vulnerability and I was like, man, I've got this vulnerability or this weird behavior. I don't actually know how to exploit this though. And it wasn't until I then, maybe like a few months later, made a video on business logic errors that I was like, oh, I could have done that. So I was able to change the quantity in my basket to a negative number. It wouldn't let me check out with a negative number. So like, because the total was the like minus $10. But I didn't realize if I had added something to my basket that was $10, I could have got it for free. But in like, I could have used that negative number to get something else for free. And that has always been, it's like my white whale. It's like, I always remember that. I always remember me being like a newbie hacker and like really not knowing what I was doing. But yeah, as for what the blue team can do, I'd assume that any sufficiently motivated hacker is going to go and look at your mobile apps and just make sure the API is secure. Like the API layer is the most it's like the common fact, right? You don't need a specialist skills to do API hacking. Lord knows I don't have any. And if you can go and test and kind of test that API and make sure the API is hardened, it doesn't matter if somebody like me who has an iPhone, who has SSL kill switch, or that has a rooted Android phone or is using an emulator, manages to bypass that, because it doesn't matter because your API is secure. So I would say that really blue team, the best thing you can do is do API security. I am going to plug a work thing though. Should you be interested in API security, I work at a company called Traceable. We do API security. Don't worry, I'm not going to sell you the product, but should you wish to, we actually do a webinar series with some of our API security researchers. And we did one last week talking about what the Portswigger top 10 and what to learn from it, and whether or not people doing like API hacking or API security needs to worry about it. So I'm on it as the kind of offensive security. My two colleagues who do defense are on it to give their perspectives. We saw some pretty good vulnerabilities in there. I mean, we were able to or like one thing we noticed that we see quite a lot of is being able to like kind of come back to old vulnerabilities like SQL injection and find them in really unique places because of things like APIs. So that's my plug. Go watch. I put the webinar in the private chat on the thing if someone wants to paste it. But please sign up. There's no marketing, there's no fluff, there's no sales, nothing. It is literally just free API security knowledge. That's it.
Excellent. Well, goodness. Thank you again and again, Katie, for all your incredible work and efforts, everything that you've been doing. Thank you so much for putting together all these sweet upskill challenges, even the WebSockets one we got out the door just this week, and all the others that you've built thus far. I'm super grateful for all your support, and I'm super duper happy we get a chance to hang out, we get a chance to chat, and actually banter a little bit more. I hope I can catch you at, I don't know, what other next conference, whether it's DEF CON, whether it's Black Hat, wherever.
B-side San Francisco.
Heck yeah. All right, cool. Super soon then. Well, thank you for tuning in to the live stream. Yeah. With that, I know it's getting to the top of the hour. I got a dash. I don't know about anyone else in the audience, but look, please do give some love to justhacking.com, Just Hacking Training, and especially take a look at all Katie's stuff there, or track her down at Traceable and the webinar and all the stuff they're doing. So super exciting stuff. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
All righty. Bye, all. Until next time.